An all-time elimination game is born. Plus, Turbo gives Bananas the middle finger. CT goes full house uncle mode. UK learns being the only alliance isn't a good thing. Production may be winning me over with the format. And Will has a full-blown crash out over the most professional of professional showmances I may have ever seen. It's the Challenge 41 Vets and New Threats Episode 2 recap coming up right now. What up, my fellow challenge lovers? Welcome to The Challenge Historian, where we dive deep into all things MTV's The Challenge, past, present, or future if it's happening in the Challenge universe. We are here to document it. I am your host and dedicated challenge historian, Jacob Hollaball. Thank you so very much for being here with me today on this Thursday, as will be the most regular, most likely day. We'll be doing these recaps for Season 41, Vets and New Threats. There will be some Wednesdays where we're able to record right after the episode. Occasionally, maybe it has to get pushed to Friday. Probably expect this Thursday midday to be the regular time throughout this season. And throughout this season, I will be keeping the goal of a little bit quicker of recaps for you. I appreciate all the nice comments and messages I received about don't worry about that. You can talk as long as you want. It's great. That's all very well and good. I really do appreciate that, but I am still going to stick to my goal. I would like for myself and how I would enjoy listening back to this for them to be a little bit quicker. So we're going to stick to that 30-minute goal going through episode 2 today. Only quick programming reminder up top is the first of what should hopefully be many team-ups between myself and the great Alan Aguirre over on the Caffeine Confessionals podcast and YouTube page, breaking down Total Madness. Yes, not the season. Anyone, when we said we were going to start doing some collabs to discuss seasons of old, I bet that was pretty far down the list of ones you thought might be that special first one we were starting with. But Total Madness, a season very interesting to look back on from, obviously, it, premiered 1 month into COVID lockdowns way back in 2020, over 5 years ago, 5.5 years ago now. Had a great time. It's lengthy, but it's worth it. We discuss all possible things, all possible storylines through the lens of 10 specific topics, trying to answer the question if Total Madness was a total failure, like it's most awfully kind of discussed or thought of or referenced, or was it actually under the radar, kind of a success and kind of a sneaky good season? We try to answer that question. So check that out. It's on Caffeine Confessionals YouTube page as well as podcast. Alan and I have posted it pretty much anywhere you can find us. So go give that a listen or a watch if you have not already, and make sure you're subscribed here and over there. Many more of those will be coming the next season we're going much further back than Total Madness, and that should be in the works here soon. So without further ado, episode 2, season 41. I'm getting better at calling it Vets and New Threats. Still don't love it. I kind of like just Challenge 41. We will see, but that is what we're here to talk about. Let's dive in. Not going to do the full-blown walk through the episode because there's a couple higher level storylines that we will hit that will help us cover a lot of what happened in the episode. So still trying to go in a bit of chronological order here. First thing I want to discuss is the format at large, because we get the final pieces of the format puzzle. This episode, we now know that, yes, they will be switching partners, and they will be doing so by drafting and picking based off the last daily's performance is the order they get to pick their new partners every week. We assume, it is not said, but we assume they cannot be with someone they've been with before until they've been with everyone, and then they will be allowed to cycle through a second time. That's how they've done it on USA 1 and 2 and the other couple of seasons where something like this has been in play. And then we also know the hangnail is one of 2 people. The winners get to nominate the other person, that then the house votes on one of those 2 to go in versus the elimination loser. And the elimination winner gets 2 points to go along with the daily challenge points that are being handed out. So we pretty much know everything that we assume, at least for the time being. I'm sure there'll be some changes to it. Obviously, we don't know exactly how the final, whenever we get there, would work out, but we know the format. And I've got to say, they've backed me into a corner. Production has backed me into a corner. You know, if you've listened to probably even literally one single episode, as long as this is not the very first ever podcast you've ever listened to of me, which if it is, hello, welcome, challenge historian. Lovely to meet you. Thanks for being here. But if you've listened to even any of them, I've probably mentioned in every almost 300 episodes now that I do not like messy, convoluted, too many rules formats. I want it simple. I want it straightforward. Those are what I prefer. A lot of that's based on nostalgia for super old seasons, but also I think it can lead to really good outcomes or the highest probability of good outcomes. But they've backed me into a corner. They've designed this one to incentivize all of the things that I think are either necessary and or things that I like and want. And so I think production's won. I think they've beat me on this one. I think I have to admit defeat, okay? It is convoluted. There's a bunch of rules. It's all over the place. They're changing partners every week. But every decision seems to be to incentivize the things I would think they should be incentivizing, which ultimately I think will end up in a better television show and game and overall product. And so I think they win because do I like changing partners every week? No, I see some upsides as far as like the fairness that can be involved in that and the extra strategy that's involved. But like, if I don't like it, they're like, well, okay, but what if you love drafts? You say that every draft is good. Every draft brings good things to the show. What if we had to draft every week? What if it wasn't an algorithm like it was back on USA? What if it was the winner of the daily challenge and so on down gets to pick every week, and therefore we have a draft every single week? Touche. You got me. I love a draft. I might not like switching partners every week, but I love a draft. So it's the best possible way for you to do it. The points for the dailies. I, was a little mixed on it last week. I then responded to some comments of good people pointing out very astutely of like, hey man, we want to incentivize the dailies. You've talked about that before. This is incentivizing the dailies and having a top 8, really incentivize you to keep trying. And then once you're in the bottom half to not lose. So like, it incentivizes everyone at every moment. I like that. Elimination, throwing in the 2 points for the elimination, a nice little boost to said scoring system. I kind of like having a little bit for both. I would have maybe made the elimination win worth like 3 or 4 to be a little bit more. Now it's like, if you win 3 eliminations, 4 elimination wins equals 1 daily challenge win, but they're bonus. No one else is getting points in those moments. So I get it. 2's fine. I maybe would have gone 3 or 4. But anyways, it's still the best incentivization structure they have come up with. So no matter what these points end up doing in the future, and maybe I am upset about that, they've been earned in a way that is earned and incentivizes the right things. And then the final part that they've always had struggles with is when it is going back and forth, male elimination, female elimination, especially if you're switching partners and everything, and your partner going home doesn't necessarily impact you in past formats like this. It's hard to incentivize both genders to try on every single daily challenge. If it's a men's week, maybe the women are like, oh, we don't really care. I don't care about my partner right now, or vice versa. But getting last, still putting you at a 50-50 shot of going into the following elimination. So like in this episode, Derek, is bummed to get last because he's like, okay, if blue goes home, doesn't really matter to me. But also, I'm one of the 2 people being voted on next week for elimination. So that sucks. And so all in all, the format, there's a lot of rules to it. There's a lot of change to it, but it's really good. I do like the only thing I think that we finalized this week that I didn't love was the final thing we learned pretty much, which is I like the whole house voting on everyone. I want all the possibilities on the table. I want as many people voting on as many possible people as possible. So I don't love that they switched it from last week to this week. And what we now know going forward will be the winners put one name up, the versus the hangnail, and then the house votes on those 2 people. I think it's more interesting and leads to way more, options and chaos if the whole house is voting on everyone except for the winners. And I also think in this case, the winners, they get the most points, which are going to eventually matter. They have safety, and they get to pick first in the draft the next time. So I think they are getting enough for winning that they don't need to you also get to pick one of the 2 teams to throw in there to go along with the hangnail. So, that's nitpicky. I think it's still good. And just overall the format, I think it really works. They backed me into a corner. I have to admit it. I like it. Now let's talk about another thing I really liked from this episode. That's going to be a theme here. I really liked pretty much everything from this episode. I really liked pretty much everything from this season so far. The Daily Challenge. Absolutely, absolutely love the Daily Challenge. I think the misdirection both of the players themselves as well as the audience here. Maybe you're smarter than I. Maybe you would have got one of the first places on this daily challenge and you would have picked up on, you don't really even need to look at the symbols all that much to begin with on the cars. Maybe you would have. But I definitely was, literally one of the first notes I typed right as they were starting was the same as all of the competitors were saying in their confessionals of like, do you realize how impossible this is? These cars, we have like a quarter of a second to look at all these complicated symbols on the bottom of the car. This is impossible. How is this ever going to happen? And I wrote like, how is this ever going to happen? There's no way they're ever going to be able to do this. And of course, that was a bit of a misdirection. You basically needed to stand there long enough to see one. And then there was a pattern in a mirroring situation that you could go to your board and you could figure out it basically like a puzzle that you just needed one little portion of the answer key to then go put together a puzzle based off some patterns. And, the vet experienced folks figure this out. And the ones that were good at puzzles and experienced enough to figure this out were the ones that end up finishing near the top. I love the misdirection. I'm okay that it does probably benefit, the experienced people and or just the smarter people in general. That's totally fine. Turbo, let's talk about whose threat status was kind of elevated or downgraded. But before we talk about some kind of like winners and losers of this daily challenge, the one thing worth pointing out that I thought was about to happen that turns out it was foreshadowing for something that will happen in the future. And this is a spoiler to some degree, but it's like based off of something we've seen in all of the trailers. So this is not a spoiler based off of like something I know that happens that is not, public knowledge via, the show itself. So in the trailers for the season, we see TJ announcing that someone cheated at a daily challenge. I think at a daily challenge, I don't know. We see TJ announcing that someone cheated and he doesn't like cheaters. Even more than quitters, he hates cheaters. And so in this daily, we get the little moment where D goes over to Lekka and Turbo and is like, can you help me out? And Turbo says to Lekka something to the effect of like, don't talk to her. There's all these cameras on. TJ will see this. And she goes away. And in the moment, I was like, I remember that thing from the trailer and was like, oh shit, is this what's going to be like count as the cheating? Like nothing happened. At least, maybe we'll see more. And Lekka actually did say something to D or tried to help. But I think that was just foreshadowing and letting us know, which was kind of interesting, that like eventually down the road, there is going to maybe be, it's not maybe, we saw in the trailer, someone's going to cheat in some way. And Turbo is going to look very smart, looking back at this of like, no, there's cameras everywhere. TJ's watching. TJ's always watching. Do not do anything that could be, near cheating. Now, to the threat status. 4 people that I thought elevated in my mind where they kind of stand at in the pecking order. We'll see how that turns into the power rankings at the end of this podcast. And 3 people that I'm kind of downgrading a little bit in my mind and maybe where they end up in the power rankings later on. The elevated folks. First off, Turbo. What a just up and down, most recently big comeback for Turbo. I was out on Turbo being back on the show. And then I really was back in on the most recent All-Star season, and now I'm really back in here. He's great. He provides a lot, and he is really good at like pretty much all of these things. And it's kind of interesting that because he has as he says, still very broken English and can lead to some of the communication issues with a partner every once in a while, he's this really, really good player and competitor that does have the one extra like unique weakness of the thing that gets in his way most often or not is either making the whole house hate him, which is, a few others have done that too, or just not being able to communicate and being a bit of an abrasive over the top competitor to begin with tends to be the people that have a hard time communicating with their partners, and then throwing the broken English on top of it is kind of like his little bit of a kryptonite, but has not shown up here and did not show up in this challenge. He crushes it along with Lekka, both of them. I feel like being able to recognize that pattern right away, and just, they gained a little more in my book, and they were already, up there near the top. Olivia was the third one. Olivia, another second place, seemed to be the one that picked up on the pattern, led the charge with her team there, and is, continuing. We'll talk alliances in a moment, but like circling around being one of the power players in the house. And so she definitely continues to rise again. Not that she was any near the bottom by any means. She was already in the top half, top third, top quarter, but episode by episode here, raising the bar a little bit further and a little bit further. And then Justin, a week after, coming off the big elimination win, gets a really good performance here in the daily challenge as well. I liked how he handled everything with Derek and everything else. We'll talk about that at some point probably here. But those four definitely moved up a little. Downgraded, my girl, my rookie fave right now, Sydney, didn't love that, as smart as she is and is, talks the big game is how smart she is, not picking up on the pattern, not having a good finish here. Cara Maria, not that she's some puzzle queen, puzzle master. She definitely excels in the other side of the game. And then the puzzles, as much as they call her a puzzle champion here, she's one of those like real hit or miss, I feel like, puzzle people where there are times, such as in the most crucial moment of all, the Vendetta's final puzzle to win the whole thing, she comes out and absolutely crushes it. And it's a puzzle that makes sense to her and she locks in and great. But then she can also have just as many like, I don't know, this one, not for me. This one, my brain doesn't work with this one. I'm great on these ones over here. I'm not so great on these ones over here. High variance puzzle player in my book. Didn't love, I thought, given how many of these she was done and seeing the other people who were finishing early might have picked up on like, okay, some people aren't running back and forth. Like CT barely even looked at these things. He must have figured something else out. Thought she'd pick up on it. And then Derek, not Derek K. We know that's puzzles and patterns and things aren't his forte. We'll talk more about him and his partner later that got last. But Derek C, this challenge is running back and forth, which he's good at, and puzzle / pattern recognition / just being like smart and strategy and thinking through what are they actually asking us to do here. I thought that he was going to do really well with him and his partner, and they did not. And so those three are my downgrades. That's the daily challenge. Next topic, then, let's briefly just touch on some of the different alliances we see formed or talked about or moves being made within the episode here at different points of it. And there's really just two to discuss. The first one is the UK alliance. Last week, when they all thought we've picked our partners and these are going to be our partners and this is the house and this is the dynamics, we start to settle in and we start to see like, all right, there is a UK alliance. And then the rest of the house is kind of split up between like there's a pro and anti-bananas and anti maybe is led by Olivia. But then they find out that they're switching partners. And so this week we get much more. I'm sure there's plenty, obviously, of conversations happening we have not seen. There's, all day long, everyone's having conversations, making little deals, all kinds of stuff. But from what we see is that all other alliance talk has mostly cooled down, and anything that is bananas or anti-bananas or Olivia leading a squad or a certain group of vets getting together, all of that is died down. The only alliance that is stuck is like, okay, no matter what this new changing format is, changing partners, the alliance that we can count on is the UK group thinks anyone from the UK, we're looking out for each other, and that group is already dwindled by one number with Rogan going home last week. And now Adrienne being up possibly for elimination. And they learn very quickly that you don't want to be the only alliance in the house. Now, if your alliance is the only one because it's just a super alliance and it's just you versus the rest of the house, but you have more than half the people, that's one thing. You can just run the game like that. This ain't that. This is a small group of people and there's 30 people, however many, people in the house right now. A lot of people. And you don't want to be the only one, because when you're the only one and everyone else is like, let's just wait to group up. There's one group over there. It's pretty small. So the rest of us, we know not all of us are going to work together this whole season. We kind of know where some lines eventually may be drawn. But for the time being, there's only one little group that is even making themselves known. Let's just all target that group and have some kumbaya. All of us are trying to kind of play background, not ruffle feathers. You, by being the only outspoken, clear alliance in the house and being as small as you are, become just the obvious, easy ones to go after, especially when most of the people in the UK alliance are in almost, it was Rogan the only non-rookie that was a part of the UK group, and now he's gone. So not a good situation to be in. They're learning that very quickly. We see them eventually be double targeted again. The only other one we see forming is we do get a moment of Jeremy, Dee, Lekka, and Sydney. And this alliance can be something. I will never call them by their name because, one, you probably should almost never name yourself if you're an alliance in-house. I know almost all of them end up do. doing that, but have it be a little more organic than the first time the four of you are sitting talking, being like, we should have a name. What should it be? And also pick something much better than what they choose. So don't love that, but I do love this four together. I love it the most for Jeremy. Now, it has benefit to all four of them. Jeremy, D, Leka, Sydney, for the strongest, I think, on the rookie front. So that is great. And you want to have a nice little tight group, especially if you can make it not as known to the rest of the group. But Jeremy's the big winner here because we know even within this format, there isn't the way it was on 40 or some other seasons where it's like the men just need the women to be on board. The women just need the men to be on board. So you want as many of them. 40 was the greatest example of all time of that. The Jordans and Bananas and Rachels of the world read the room and like, all I need is the 2 or 3 best guys here on my side, and I'm golden. They're the ones doing all the voting, impact on us. In this one, it's not like that, but you have to be partnered with different people every week. You want to still have the most of the opposite sex on your side as possible. Jeremy now has maybe three of the strongest rookies. Izzy definitely is in the conversation there. But with him, the 3 of them only have the 1 of Jeremy with them, but they each are kind of making their own, relationships with different vets and whatnot. So I like what they're building there. I like, the fact that we see them talking and giving them a name means that this is going to be around. It's not like we're never going to hear of this alliance again. But yeah, don't give yourself a nickname, especially not a bad one. Then there is the big crash out of the episode. Will. It's taken me this long to even mention him, but we will mention him a lot right here and now. Will has a big old crash out over D and Bananas and some alcohol. D and Bananas, for their part, I got to say this. Obviously, we've seen Bananas strike up a relationship, a little showmance, if you will, with a rookie woman time again. I don't know how many times, but it's a lot of times. I could probably have added a few more times to that list. This is not unknown territory for Johnny Bananas. And on its face, I certainly don't blame him for that. These houses, like, come on, like it gets pretty boring. They're not connected to the outside world. They're there for a very, very long time. All four, everyone on the show going in being like, it would be nice to have a cuddle buddy, a little showmance going on here, whether it's anything more than just a little showmance cuddle buddy or not. All four, everyone going into every season being like, that would be something that helps me get through this experience and have more fun. All on board. You can maybe question sometimes in the past, what the other person on the, in the little showman's flirtation with Johnny Bananas, what they're feeling, what they're knowing, if they're coming in knowing his full background and kind of, playing the showmance on the same level as him, I would say. And in this particular case, I think D is going about this as professionally as Bananas is too. What's good when you're on these shows, not only for your own just general fun and entertainment, but also for airtime and being a factor in a key storyline on a season. A showmance. A showmance is a good thing, especially one that also makes the game more interesting and causes weird political, social lines within the house. And so these two, I feel like, are approaching this on the very same wavelength and with some of the very same kind of humor and little back and forth and like over the topness with some of the comments and things like that. This is a very professional showmance. I respect it because we know D is clearly on the same page here as Bananas, and I like when that is the situation. In Will's comments at first, when last episode we hear like, D and I used to hook up, and I just assumed, off the show, whatever, some reality meetup event, whatever, they met, they hooked up. They're both attractive, cool people, probably around the same age, both had similar, different shows and everything, but been on reality TV, that whole thing. Fantastic. That's great. Happy for both of you. Hope you enjoyed it, both of you. But then when this episode starts and he's like, we used to hook up, and they're clearly making like the story of the episode is going to be that he's all, bummed out over D and Bananas. It's like, okay, like this is going to be a little flimsy. This is going to be a little weak, like whatever, like, look around, who on this show hasn't hooked up with someone else, not on maybe this season, but on seasons of reality TV they've been on before. But then he drops the bomb. The very important piece of info that makes all of this much more legit and much more entertaining to me and much more interesting to me, which is they hooked up in the hotel before filming, meaning like in the few days or week or whatever they have to spend in the hotel once they've gotten to on location until they throw them in the bus and go say, climb up that mountain and then you can go into your house. That's different. That was right days before this is all transpiring. That in my mind, if I'm Will, I'm like, I'm in a showmance for the season. This is fantastic. Like, I can't believe we're starting this before the camera's rolling. Maybe it's even real then because we're starting this before the camera's rolling. And it's with someone who D is a very desirable outside of the show person, like in real life person. So I get how Will would be like, I'm kind of, I don't know, like this is pretty great. And I know we're not like dating by any means or whatever. It's not like a big history, but it is like yesterday or a couple days ago history. It's not like, oh, a couple months ago we met at an event and we had a few drinks. We went out and we hooked up a couple of times while we were both in the same city. And that's great. I've texted her once in a while, a flirty text, but just, but whatever. Very different in my book. And it makes it all the more interesting, all the more entertaining. It doesn't maybe justify all of the actions, all of the crash out that comes after it, but it is fun. And, and then on top of all of this, it must be pointed out, he's feeling this way. He's watching these two, how flirty it is. And, Bananas is very over the top and loud and boisterous about the funny things to say and the flirtations and all of that. But then you get hammered and things just go into full blown crash out, which should be pointed out. They're back in a public bar where we know from this episode, they're allowed to buy whatever drinks they want because there is a dumb side argument over, did you buy a 2-for-1 and was it for me? And then I took your drink with Derek and Leo, I think is his name. Not really going to talk about that. Loved that little moment though, but mostly love. Hey, no limits here. If you want to spend your money, you can go ahead and get hammered while we're at this bar, and Will gets hammered. And then we get bus footage. I don't know how long it's been. We need it. Classic challenge, classic reality TV. You got to have a camera on the bus. If something interesting happens on the bus, which it probably does more often than not, let us see it. It's very brief, but it tells me that this is in play. Bus footage is in play, and it's still necessary and good. And Will's crash out begins. More bus footage, please, and thank you. And then, he goes on his, first he's all angry, later he's crying. Sometimes his shirt's on, sometimes it's off. He punches a wall and maybe hurts his hand pretty badly. The whole thing, it's a beautiful mess. And it feels very old school challenge, even like real worldy, like late night crying scene after the bar on the Real World, but definitely old school challengey. I loved every part of it. And assuming that Will, who we've now learned is also like former Marine, is actually a good competitor, that I would expect him to be in, a physical threat and all of that. And, at least smart enough to be able to do some puzzles here and there. This might be a really great cast member that we have found within this rookie class. So I am all for it. I loved every bit of it. I thought it was great. It felt very classic challenge. All the elements, the fact that it was, alcohol was involved, the fact that we got bus footage, the shirt off, punch a wall, shirt back on, crying on someone's shoulder. The whole thing was fantastic. And finally, gotta say, Bananas. He knows what he's doing. He knows exactly how to do all of this. As much as I have and will continue to say, it's too many seasons. At some point, the longevity of the show is hurt a little bit by needing to give this space to some other people to see arcs that we haven't seen yet and storylines we haven't seen versus the same person going through the same storylines and things over and over. That all can be true. It does not diminish the respect I have for the craft. And this is a craft at this point. Johnny Bananas on the challenge is a well-crafted, well-oiled machine. He knows exactly what he's doing, how to get reactions, how to be on the camera, how to do every single part of it. And it still is pretty good and still pretty entertaining. And he's done it again. And so respect to the man. On to the elimination. I realize the whole 30-minute mark, not hitting it this episode, but there's always, it's good to keep having the same goals. Eventually, maybe one day I will hit it, but the elimination, it's got to be talked about because guess what? It was also awesome. So good. Blue versus Tay, how they end up there, not really much interesting to talk about here. One of them gets last. Poor performance. Not a great partner, situation for this particular challenge. Blue kind of, gets the short end of the stick there being with Derek. If only she could have had Derek as her partner for this elimination. This might be the greatest Derek game ever invented. But Blue versus Tay. Tay goes in because of the UK situation and Blue asked for her. And thank goodness she did. And we get a perfectly good size weight class matchup for this game. Laser focus. This game fucking rules. This is amazing. As CT, I believe, is the one that says, it's a new variation on a balls in type of situation. Everything about it's perfect. I think the tying the hands up is a really good. I think with free hands, you're just going to end up with people 100% tackled on the ground the whole time and not able to move. And it's going to mostly be a big stalemate. Can you get away once or twice to a thing? So I think the hands tied made it good. The most chaos to be like super duper physical. You are wrestling, but like it's kind of hard to actually just hold someone down for the entirety of the time. This game's awesome. I do desperately want to see Derek K play this. I thought for sure we were going to get Derek be like, TJ, are you sure? Are you sure that you don't want to just leave this up for the men's in a couple days? Like, I'll be here. I'll make sure I'm in. You sure you don't want to do that? I thought he was going to actually ask for that. It's a great matchup. According to Blue on X, I think I saw this. I was scrolling through really fast after watching the episode this morning to see if there was anything interesting on the social media streets I had missed that I might want to include here. And the only one I saw was, I believe Blue pointed out they did 5 rounds, not 3, because they tied 2 of them, where like what we saw was in order, but was actually round 1, 3, and 5, 2 and 4. They tied. And so this already is a grueling how tired you would be, the cardio involved in this. But the fact that it then was 5 of them versus 3 of them really gives credence to why they were so dead tired by the end of this. Unbelievable performance by both. I loved everything about it. If we've said it before, I'll say it again. When it's a headbanger, if you get a proper 2 people in the same weight class, in the same, desire class, if you will, for how much they're interested in doing the scrappy headbanger. If you get the proper weight class and you get 2 people who are both equally into it, headbangers turn into A+, the best thing the challenge has to offer. If you get a matchup that is a couple weight classes apart, headbangers turn into horrible, boring, cringeworthy. This is headbangers just are that way. You're either going to get the best of the best, or it's going to be like, God dang, you're going to have the like, should we even be doing these conversations? And thank goodness it's been a while since we've had a classic A+ headbanger. Amazing performances by both. So much fun. And we got one. So love that. Blue goes home. I think that's fine for the show. I was bummed to hear that her and America were like working together and were on good friends. I don't watch Big Brother, but I follow enough social media that I thought those two like didn't like each other on their Big Brother season. So I came into the season being like, I hope they're like at each other's throats. It was the opposite. So good with Blue being gone. Now for the awards. Best quote first. Just a winner here. No even honorable mentions. Ladies, you kiss them, you tease them, and you don't give your power away. From D, that was her. I said that in a weird way where, it's saying about lady, like, no, telling the other ladies, this is what you do to the men. Loved that from D. Best moment of the episode. Honorable mention goes to the car crashing at the Daily Challenge. That's funny that one of them did roll the car. CT's toast that we briefly hear in the background seemed really, really good and really fun. Turbo giving Bananas the middle finger toy was a fantastic little moment. Turbo's glasses were actually, I thought, really cool too. Justin giving Derek all the ride, reading him the riot act, and Derek was basically responding with, yeah, that's all fair, but I honestly, it doesn't matter anymore. I did it for the same reason that I'm not going to care about this now. Loved that, though, from both of them. Naya in her vibrator. That was a very nice little moment. But the winner of the best moment of the episode is just Will's crash out in general. The bus footage, the taking the shirt off, watching over the railing, putting the shirt on to cry. Marvelous performance all around. Wrap it all in one moment and call it the best of the episode. As for the MVP, honorable mention certainly to D and to Bananas, and a shout out to Justin, to CT, and to Adrienne, who they to explain the hangnail. She gets a lot of confessionals this episode, and she does a very good job with them as just kind of narrator and reminding you that she's there and this is how the format works. Good job by her. But the winner's got to be Will. It is a Will-centric episode, and so Will is the MVP of episode 2. And then finally, let's update those power rankings. We will continue to just do a top 5 women, a top 5 men, because of the ever-changing partners and too many people to go one to the bottom. We're sticking with the top 5. And things changed On the men's side, same 5, slightly different order. On the women's side, new entrant and quite a different order. So let's start with the women first. It's a little more interesting here. I'm bumping Olivia to the top. I had her number 2. I'm moving her to number 1. And that's as much as because she continues to prove where that threat level rising and rising and rising as it is, who I had number 1 falling down and needing to fall down a couple of spots. So Olivia's number 1. I'm bumping Millionaire Mitchell, Ashley, all the way up to 2. She was 5 last week. She's 2 now. She's playing the calm, cool, collected game thus far. She is a 2-time champion. And I just think she's in good standing here. And then third, I've got Cara Maria, who was previously 1. I've bumped down to 3. A couple performances in a row where I'm like, okay, I thought we'd do a little bit better. I thought we'd put a few more points on the board. I'm not losing faith, but I can't have you at number 1 anymore after these first 2 episodes. So 3 is still completely respecting the competitor and the legacy there. Lekka moves in. She was unranked before, breaks in. I'm putting her at 4. Good performances across the board, all 3 challenges so far. I think people are going to want her as a top. Her and Izzy, I think, are just going to go back and forth being the top draft pick by, they're always going to end up picking their partners, not being picked because they're going to keep ending up at the top of the daily challenge, I presume. But love everything from her. And then Michaela bumped from 3 to 5. I'm keeping her in there. I thought about putting Izzy in there. I thought about a few other people, but I'm keeping Michaela there for now. She does catch the stray from Adrienne, but I think it was true, like the most stray of strays to be even brought up for possible elimination. So Olivia, Ashley, Cara Maria, Lekka, Michaela, still very vet heavy, but 1 rookie busting in there. Men, mostly keeping it the same. Jeremy, number 1. I do like, again, that he has now got 3 of the strongest rookies on his side, on the female side, and he's going to be a desired partner from the vet women, so I think he's in a very good spot. Theo, number 2, for a lot of the same reasons, plus having the brewing, he and Olivia and whatever they can build alliance-wise. I'm moving Turbo up is the one difference from week 1 to week 2. I'm moving Turbo from 5 to 3. He leapfrogs Banana and Derek K, who I round out my top 5 with. So that's your rankings. That's everything from episode 2, really episode 3, but episode 2 of season 41, Vets and New Threats. Let me know what I got right, wrong, anything you want to chat about in the comments below. I will respond to as many of those as possible. DMs are open at Challenge Historian on Instagram. If you want to chat over there, I will do my best to be checking that much more regularly. Again, now that the season is in full swing, subscribe wherever you're listening or watching. That helps a lot. And stay tuned for more recaps on this channel. Go to Caffeine Confessionals. Check out that breakdown of Total Madness and all future seasons that Alan and I will be breaking down over on his channel and platform. So, love you. Appreciate you being here. I will talk to you next week. Peace.